Good day, folks. This is Greg Judy at Green Pastures Farm. Today, Ben and Isaac and I are working on the final steps of securing this water tank. This is a tire, earth-moving tire, and we had a pad put in back here when Johnny built this pond. And this pond was built several years back. It doesn't have any watershed at all, so it's not full. But it's got enough water in it that we're going to be able to water the cattle. We just turned on the float a minute ago, or the valve, and we've got a 2-inch brass valve in there. You can see the water coming out of it. We just turned it on a minute ago. That white pipe is a 4-inch sewer pipe with a cap on it, and it doesn't have threads on it. It just pushes down in the bottom of that tank. The bottom of that tank has satcrete concrete in it. That's what made our seal. And then we used that's a Job Megaflow yellow float. So when I buy these brass valves, they have a valve that comes with it. You can buy if you want, but I don't like them. They're kind of a metal. They got a wimpy little arm on them that'll snap off. Here I've got, that's a Powerflex poly braid rope. And I took a bronze, actually it's a brass screw there. Ben, you want to come here a minute? Yeah. Just pick up on that float. Can you reach in there? You're long enough. You got, yeah, there you go. Now pull up on it. There you go. So I just took a bronze screw and drilled a 1/8-inch hole through it. And so it's got a really short lever arm, but you notice when Ben pulled up on that, now you can let loose, Ben. There it comes. Now the water started again. So this is a 800-gallon tank. It's got a 2-inch flow. We would have a whole lot more pressure on that valve if that pond was full. We've got about 6 foot of the standpipe still showing in that pond over there. But we've got about 1.5 foot up on the pipe. So we're going to be able to water the cattle here. We're only going to be here for about 10 days on this particular farm. And we've got the rock. We put the geotextile down. You can see this stuff, that's the fabric. There's 2 different kinds you can get. There's a really heavy fabric, comes in like 330 foot in a roll, and it's going to run you about $1 a foot. This stuff here is about 75 cents a foot. It's 432 feet in that roll. You can do a lot of pads with a roll of geotextile. So Isaac's marking those out, and he's going to put a 40 feet square. What's that?
Speed square.
Yeah, well, your speed square's in your eyeball, okay? He's gonna square these off, and we're gonna match these beams up. These are all cedar beams. We milled these off our property, so these have been trees, and then we put the wood miser to work. So we set them on a sawmill, and so we got, well, look at the red in the middle of that wood. See, that's the beautiful thing about cedar, is cedar won't rot when you got lots of red in it. And these have got a lot of red in them. If you just take a little cedar tree that doesn't have any red in the middle of it, it'll last you about 4 years, and it just rots right into the dirt. But this red stuff, it'll be there for, gosh, 30, 40 years. Somebody said made the comment the other day on our YouTube, you know, we had Johnny pushing those stumps out over the cedar stumps, and said, why don't you just leave them there and let them rot out? Well, folks, that's going to take about 30 years. We found a stump over there that I cut 20 years ago, and when Johnny dug that out, I mean, it was as solid as red and solid almost as the day as I cut it. 30, and that was 20 some years ago. So I don't have 30 years to wait for a stump to rot out. I want that sucker gone. And so we're going to end up with about 1.5 feet of rock around the base of this tire. We've still got a pretty good pile of rock over here we're going to pick up, but right now you don't bring in the last bit of your rock until you get all these beams right where you want them. And then we're going to take a 1-inch fiberglass rods. Got a whole pile of them over here. And we like to use the 1-inch. So there it is. That's a beast of a little rod. So that's a 4-footer. And those will be driven in right there. And so we'll put 3, a minimum of 3, we might put 4 on each one of these beams. And then we'll drill a hole through the rod and put a 4-inch deck screw into that beam. But see, the beam's wanting to come out this way anyway, so the deck screw is probably just overkill. You probably don't even need to put a screw in it, because the rock's going to be pushing against that beam. So probably just driving in the posts on the back side is good enough, but doesn't take that much time to put a deck screw in there either. So the cows are getting closer. We're going to be here in, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're going to be here in 10 days. And then we'll be on this particular water for about the same number of time, about 10 days. Across the creek over there, we've got a pond. We've got a wire right around the edge of it. And we also have a creek. And you can't depend on the creek. The creek dries up, but right now we've had rain and that creek's got a riffle going in it. So we're fortunate we'll be able to use that creek and have no problems. But this is gonna make a nice watering point. You know, you can come in here in the wintertime, 20 below zero, and you can chop that ice off of that tire and you've got water. Don't let them drain. Don't ever drain those tire tanks. Now in Minnesota you couldn't do that, but in central Missouri we don't have ice that'll freeze down. See, that tire's 34 inches tall, so we don't have anything that'll freeze 34 inches thick. And plus, you put that rock up on the side of that tire, and then it's sitting on the ground too. You got that heat. You've got the heat of the ground, you've got a little bit of insulation factor with that rock, and the cattle, you know, they're going to get that rock sealed with a little bit of dirt and mud and poo and stuff, and so it'll be packed tight. I've never had one freeze solid. I've had some big old ice cubes on them. I remember a couple interns, I had Kevin and Joe. If they're watching this, they probably remember that too. Over there on docks, we cut a chunk of ice out of there. I got a picture of them holding the block up. Each one of them had a big old block, and it was about 16 inches deep. I mean, that was a chunk of ice. But you know what? We got those chunks out of there, turned the water on, and we had water for our livestock. And that's a great feeling, because you've got this rock. It's a good solid pad. They're not wading down in your pond in the muck. And in the wintertime, that's the worst time in the world to put animals close to a pond, because now they got all kinds of mud and stuff froze on their legs, which is not good. So here we got a nice clean surface. You're not going to find a young calf stuck in the pond, and he'll be able to drink out of that just fine. We're going to get some more rock. There's actually going to be rock going up on that tire. It's going to be clear up to, well, you can see where it's at now. It's going to be past that center bead. There's probably going to be about 10 inches of that tire showing. And then we put fiberglass rods, 1.25 inches. We'll be using some of that sucker rod we bought to run across the top of that. We'll have 3 of them. That way the sucker rod prevents a cow from climbing in there, and it also keeps the animals from busting off, monkeying with your float. They can't get a hold of it because that rod's going to be right in line with it. So always put something over that tire, because on a hot day you'll find a cow climb in there, or worse, maybe a calf gets knocked in there. If you put those 3 rods across there, at least they have something kind of get their feet on to climb out of there. If you got sheep, our friend from Tennessee, Greg Brand, he actually put concrete blocks in there. He built steps coming out of that tank, because he had some, I think they were goats, baby goats fall off in there. Well, once he put the concrete blocks in there, he didn't lose any more goats. So that's an idea. If you got sheep or goats, make sure there's steps coming out of that tank, because their feet can't touch ground. They just drown. They can't get out. So, and goats especially, they like playing on the rim of that tire. They'll be out there walking around on that, and one of them slips or another one knocks him in. You've got a dead baby goat, because he's not going to come out of there. So put some blocks in there. But we're going to go ahead and get this all trimmed up and get the stakes in it. And we're anxious to use this. It's going to be awesome. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. And everyone new to the channel, hit that subscribe button on the way out. I'd appreciate it. And maybe the like if you like what you see. And we're going to see you all down the road.